Welcome back to Slot Car Garage, Wizzard Storm Extreme, Episode 2. I'm your host, Dwayne. Today we're going to be talking about the front and rear axle and how gear mesh and how they can affect handling, and also the guide pin. So this should be a little shorter and sweeter, hopefully, than the last episode. We'll see. Rear axle, front axle, guide pin. Now, if you remember from the last episode, I was talking about how the front axle is all the way forward and it lines up nicely in the window. Well, we have found that if you move the axle back, it handles a little bit better. It'll be a shorter wheelbase, and I will show you how to do that. And also the guide pin can be slid back. There's probably 5 positions here, so that makes for a shorter pivot. It can turn tighter on a shorter pivot point. From this guide pin to the rear tires is your pivot point. Okay, so let's dive in and see how that's done. Take the body off. These holes, chassis holes, could be just a little bit opened up, just a hair. Alright, so let's start with the guide pin. This is the tool that I recommend highly getting. Lucky Bob has these. We call it the tuning fork, or it's like a pick with some holes on the end. Doesn't look like much, but it's very useful. So what you can do is put this over the guide pin, and then don't stab yourself. Kind of wrap your hand in something like so. And then sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's near impossible, but if you push on it hard enough, you'll get it. You can slide this back. Alright, so there's just a hair of a gap right there. That's where I like to run them. I'm not 100% sure. You might be able to go one more, but I like to go to there. Okay, that's a good demonstration of one of the many uses for this tool. Second demonstration is when these come box stock, there's a lot of slack in here, a lot of free play. Okay, we're going to tighten that up. That helps with the handling. If you think about it, if this car, when it slams into the corner and then it hits like that, it causes some momentum to go out to the outside. So you want to tighten this up. Well, you can't squeeze these anymore. They're bottomed out. So we're going to put some spacers in here. And also, we're going to move the axle back one spot. There's 2 holes for the axle. So let's get this off of here. Again, super handy tool. Kind of wedge that open. Like that. So now you can see there's 2 holes. Like so. Alright, put that down. Grab some spacers. You don't really have to be scientific with sizing. You're just going to kind of guesstimate to get it even. I mean, if you really want to know what these are, you can measure them. I had these laying around. You can use a caliper and measure. Okay, so that's a 10. And we'll grab another one at random here. Alright, that's another 10. So we'll start with that. We'll start with 2 10s. What you got to do is put one all the way down there. And then we're going to go the nearer hole. And you're gonna know you're right because it's gonna just miss the armature tip there. Okay, and then it's gonna go through there, and then we put the second one on. Just kind of wet your finger a little bit so it sticks, and put that on. Give it a try. Okay, so we still got a little bit of free play, a little bit more than I would like, but let me show you the wheelbase I'm talking about. So this axle just misses the top of the armature. Okay, so that's how you know you got the right one. Alright, so we'll do it again. We're gonna add, I don't know, 5 on each side. We'll try that. So I've got mine labeled. These are 005. That's 10 thousandths, 5 thou thickness on these spacers, and sometimes you get them mixed up. You can confirm and measure. Yep, that's a 5. Grab another one. Can't even see it, but it's in there. And it's a 5 thou. Alright, so same process as before. You gotta get them up against the tire or up against the wheel. Use the nearer, shorter wheelbase right through. That was already on there like magic. Put the 5 on. So now, okay, I've got 15 on each end. I do have 15s I could have used. Either way. Might be lighter, who knows, to use the 15s. That's pretty snug. Pretty snug. Maybe take one off. Let's try that. We'll take the last one off because that's the 5. Put the 10 back on. Yeah, it's a horse apiece. That's probably pretty good. We'll go. So we've got 15 passenger side and 10 driver's side. Okay, and then we shorten up the wheelbase. So the front is done. However, I did notice these are brand new tires. And I just noticed this today. If you can see that, there's a little bit of a nub from like the casting of the rubber right about there. It's just bothering me. It's sort of like a bump. You can see it on the other back one here a little bit easier. When I get around to it, I'm going to sand that off and make it smooth, because I'm picturing 700 scale miles per hour. The front end is bouncing a little bit. Can't have that at 700 miles an hour. So I'll address that. And we allow any size tire. I believe Lucky Bob only sells one size of fronts, but you can sand these down if you want to make them smaller. He sells 2 sizes of rears. The generic ones are 450 that come with the car, but you can get it's either a 480 or a 470. You can bring the back end up if you want. The 450s are generally pretty good, but again, you can like run the car with some really fine sandpaper on the track or a power supply, you can run these down and make them smaller if you want. That's very tedious, time consuming, but it's allowed. So that's the front, and then we're gonna put some oil. You would oil here and here. There's right at the ends of the axle. Don't overdo it with the oil. It ends up all over the track. Just a little dab will do ya. Alright, let's move on to the back axle. They come stock with this boss. This is called a boss. That helps position these two gears. The tip of this gear rides in this slot of the boss. Now, I don't particularly like it. It's okay, but if you think about it, there's friction between the tip of this gear and this boss. There's friction like all the time. So there is a better way to position this gear onto this gear. This is the crown gear, this is the pinion gear. There's a better way to do it, and I will show you how. Always remember, when the car is upside down, this is normal position. You can't pull the axle out through the top, so you got to turn the car upside down. I always put the gear at the top, gears on the right. Right is right with the gear. That's how I remember. Like so. Right is right. From the other position, the driving position, it would be passenger side. But you gotta flip it over to take it out. It'll go in perfectly fine the other way, but if you do that, the car will run backwards. Not mentioning any names. It's happened before. You know who you are. Like so. Okay. So let's fix this. I mean, these are okay to run. They're a little loud. They're a little chattery. This plastic it's harder. The white they're a little bit harder of a plastic. You want a softer plastic. So again, this will just pull right off, and then you can force this gear off by hand. I have an expensive puller. This is a tire puller or a gear puller. Either way, it actually fits right into the boss nicely. I like to kind of hold this because it'll slip off of there. Just get it going past the spline. And it comes right off. There you go. There's the boss. Take my handy dandy favorite little screwdriver. Get this out of here. And pitch that in the garbage. I don't care for those. Okay, so now the gear is off. We're gonna use a different gear that I recommend. And also, as long as we're at it here, this is the pinion gear. It's a 7-tooth pinion. Let's take that off. Another use for the tool. Just wedge that off. Goodbye. I like to run Tyco. They're the gray Tyco. They're a little bit softer, a little bit smoother of a gear mesh. It makes a difference, believe it or not. Put this in here. Okay. Put that in there. Like that. Like that. Hold it in place nicely, and then you can use this to install your gear. And you just kind of drive it pretty far down. If it's really loose, you might have oil on here. Take it off, clean it up, start over. You can always super glue this on here if you want. It's fine. And then the crown gear that I like to use is a 25 tooth Predator crown gear. That might be the part number there. That's what it looks like. It says, if you look really close, there's a 2 and a 5 on here, right there. That tells you how many teeth are on there. If you want to experiment with different sized gears, feel free, go ahead. You can even change the pinion gear, I think, to probably a 6 or an 8. They've got 27s, 23s, 22s, 20. They've got all different sizes of crown gears. All right, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna just put the gear on, no boss this time. Get it started. Push that down. Now you kind of set it. Okay, we're not close yet. We got to get that in there some more. You can use the tire puller again, like so. You can do that. This kind of lets you fine-tune the depth that you want. Alright, we're pretty close right there. Okay, so before we go too much further, I want to bring this pinion up a little bit. It's just engaging, way at the end, the tip of the gear. So we're going to bring this up a little bit. But not too much, otherwise the gear is going to ride on this ridge here, and that's no good. Alright, that's pretty good. Maybe down a little bit. If you want to go down, you can jam this in here and wedge it down a little bit. There we go. Okay. And then, so now you can see we got all kinds of free play. This is no good. So what you want to do is you gotta force this to the left. You gotta keep it over there. How do we do that? We're gonna throw some spacers in there. Wet your finger. Throw some spacers on. Now this time would be a good idea to measure them or know what you have. It's just so you can use that as a reference. Okay, this is a 5. So I'm going to start with a 15 because there's quite a bit of space in there. I'll just double check. Yep, 15. That goes on there. And then let's add the 5. So now we're at 20. So these spacers have to go inboard the chassis. See that? They are inboard inside the chassis. Free play, a little bit too much yet. A little bit too much. So we have a 5 in there. We can take the 5 off, add a 10. Add a 10. Double check. Ten. So a 15 and a 10 makes 25. There we go. That feels good. You just want a little bit of free play. Don't want to make it too tight, because then it's not going to spin nicely. Okay. Put your wheel back on. These the axle will just bottom out in the wheel, so you just squeeze it tight. There you go. And you can tell it's smooth. You can tell by the sound how it feels and the free play. So now the boss is gone. We're just using spacers inboard the chassis. And if you really want to take it to the next level, you can get yourself like a sacrificial car, an engine, and you can just run this on a power supply and put a little toothpaste in here and just run it for hours with toothpaste. That'll actually smooth out these gears a little bit and give you even better mesh. I think these are pretty good as they are, but if you want to do that, you go right ahead. Okay, so that covers back axle, front axle. Move it inboard, make your wheelbase smaller, and tire sizes. These are 450s roughly. I have lots of tires from racing lots of different cars, so they got miles on them, so they will wear down a bit. So here's 450. Yeah, that's pretty smooth. These are probably a little bit smaller than 450. Let's try. Can't see nothing. 448. 446. Yeah, these are about 447 probably is what these are. This is a real nice tire gauge from BSRT. Not cheap, FYI. Pricey. You can't really measure these with a caliper because you'll compress the tire. You won't get an accurate enough reading. So I would recommend getting this. It's got the top half is mainly for the front tires, and then you've got all different sizes for back tires here. And you need to measure these tires mounted on the hub, because again they're going to compress too much. So the hubs can actually be different sizes, different by thousandths of an inch. That'll make a difference on the tire. So you want to mount them before you measure them. Alright folks, that's going to do it for episode 2. Next time you see me, you can ask me some questions. Comments are unavailable at this moment. Alright guys, thanks.